My name is Werner Cleaver. I direct the practicum program here at CMU. This afternoon, I'm pleased to introduce Cheryl Woelk to you. It all started about 15 years ago with this very fancy poster hanging on a practicum bulletin board, which simply says, "Spend a year in Korea." Cheryl, you won't remember that? Okay. For Cheryl, things might have started a little bit earlier than that, including her growing up years at Zion Mennonite Church in Swift Current, her work at Camp Elam in Saskatchewan, her spending a summer in China with China Educational Exchange, beginning her studies at CMU. But after some shoulder tapping, Cheryl's response to this Mennonite Church Canada invitation for a CMU student to do a practicum in Korea began in my office early in 2001. The following school year, Cheryl was in Seoul, Korea, working with the Korean Anabaptist Center, more commonly known by its acronym KAC. 1 year there turned into 2 years, and that turned into 6 years, working with KAC's peace education programs and working with developing Connexus, KAC's then new language institute. Cheryl's work in Korea focused on peace education and on developing language learning with a peace perspective. That focus has accompanied her also well beyond her time in Korea, in Virginia, in Saskatoon, in her work with NARPI, the Northeast Asia Regional Peacebuilding Institute, and now also in her current work with Mennonite partners in China. When thinking about how to introduce Cheryl here, I went to ask some of the people at Mennonite Church Canada, who know Cheryl and her work much better than I do, what I should say here this afternoon. Their responses rolled off superlatives pretty effortlessly, and here's a few of their phrases. Cheryl's a great team worker. She does high quality work. She maintains strong relationships and values. She immerses herself in language and culture and peace work in a way that is a gift to those around her. Cheryl has a way of incarnating God's Spirit in the best way. I was encouraged to say that she's been a great ambassador for CMU, and she's also been a great ambassador for the church. In keeping with the Blazer Award theme, I was also encouraged to say that she's been a trailblazer, with about a dozen CMU students and alumni having followed her to Korea. And there's a number of people who I know here have some family members that have been a part of that dozen. These Mennonite Church Canada folks also reminded me that we should, I think quite justifiably so, give some credit to Mennonite Church Canada for who Cheryl is and for what Cheryl's done. They didn't want CMU to take all the credit, and so here's a nod to MC Canada for some of the work that they've done in helping to make Cheryl who she now is, and in Cheryl today receiving this award from CMU. Cheryl has completed a BA in English at CMU, and a Master of Arts in Education, Curriculum, and Instructional Strategies at Eastern Mennonite University. Currently, Cheryl lives with her husband, Scott, and 11-month-old son, and they were both here a moment ago but had to step out, but you heard some of the activity. Currently, they live in Saskatoon. Cheryl, welcome. Congratulations. We look forward to your comments.
Thank you, Werner. I'm very privileged and humbled to be here today and to accept this award. I was very surprised to hear about being nominated, and standing next to the other recipients of the award, I feel even more humbled. And the introduction of anticipating being inspired has been true for me, even just hearing the stories that we've heard so far. Werner has talked about my life journey well, and I have to say that if my life before coming to CMU was a warm and cozy sweater knitted together with family and safe experiences and love and church and other kinds of good and nurturing community experiences. When I came to CMU, my experience here started to pull out some threads. The threads that started to come out were curiosity and love of language learning, language and literature and words being a way of expressing ourselves, but also connecting deeply with each other. Another thread that was pulled out was a love of seeking peace and pursuing peace. And what does that mean in different contexts? What does that mean for different places that I'm in? And another thread is a love for the church and for the church that comes out of the Anabaptist and Mennonite traditions, and a sense of hope and optimism about what the church can be and who we can be as people of Christ. Through the experience I've had since CMU, including the practicum, which I have to clarify was finished after the year. I did complete it. I stayed on longer, but I did finish the practicum. Through those experiences, these threads of language, peace, and faith were woven into my learning, into my observations and experiences through the Korean Anabaptist Center, working with peace education in a context of language learning, where I was learning Korean language, where I was teaching English language, and experiencing the sacred space of that language learning. When we are exposing ourselves to new ways of thinking and communicating, we are forming new identities. And this is a sacred space. And to experience that myself, and the vulnerability and the intensity of learning to open myself to a new way of seeing the world, and then walking together with others who were on that journey of language learning was a powerful experience in thinking about what does peace building look like, and what does peace building look like, especially when we are working between cultures and different ways of seeing the world. When we went to Virginia and our experience at Eastern Mennonite University, I was able to work with international graduate students and local immigrants who were taking English classes at campus. Through that experience, I also had those threads of language, peace, and faith weaving through my mind and through my experiences, reflecting on how people coming to North America had a different experience of language learning than people who were living in Korea. How that experience of language learning also integrated issues of power and disadvantage and marginalization in ways that might not be experienced in other parts of the world. And how the experience of refugees in that context, in particular, was a powerful look at peace building, not just on a personal, interpersonal level, but on international levels, and how do we deal with that? And then coming to Saskatoon, working there also with newcomers to the city, coming from a variety of different cultural backgrounds, interacting with international graduate students at the university. And then also these threads have been woven through my experience with the church in Saskatchewan. How does language, how does peace, and how does our faith connect us or divide us in different ways? So at the moment, there is a tapestry emerging of these threads, and I think this tapestry is something that, for right now, people are coming to maybe sit and talk about. And this is through the project that I'm working on with Mennonite partners in China called Language for Peace. It's an effort to network among educators who are interested in integrating language learning and the teaching process and what we are learning from that about peace building, and integrating the peace building into our work as language learners and teachers. And so this is a conversation that continues these threads, and talking about how we learn language, how do we hold this sacred space for people who are learning language and learning to step across boundaries that are very difficult, that are learning ways to see the world that are different and possibly hurtful or harmful for them coming as newcomers. How we stretch across those boundaries as learners ourselves, as we seek to put ourselves in a vulnerable position of language learners. And then how do we teach? How do we teach ourselves? How do we seek to learn other ways of speaking that might not that might help to break down the barriers between us, whether that's learning another language directly or whether that's learning ways to speak and listen to each other in ways that promote connection and community instead of division. So my experience now is another reworking of these threads of language, peace, and faith. This reworking, I think, continues to connect with the verse that Larry quoted as well, the doing justice, loving mercy, and walking humbly together. That we do this together in community, and we do this in communication. So I'm very grateful for CMU to start pulling out these threads to draw attention to these parts of my thinking and being that have become so important in my life, and to start the process of unraveling and reworking my experiences. And through this, I've become able to anticipate the discomfort of the unraveling and look forward to how these threads will be reworked and into what shape and form they will come next. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today, and I'm grateful for this chance to talk about the work and to receive this award. Thank you.